One last passage from the same Marriage of Heaven and Hell. Fantastic text. The ancient tradition that the world will be consumed in fire at the end of 6,000 years is true, as I have heard from hell. There's your apocalyptic vision right there. For the cherub with his flaming sword is hereby commanded to leave his guard at the tree of life. See, the cherub is standing guard at the tree of life to prevent humanity from attaining immortality. That's what Jehovah said. You've got to go, because otherwise you might eat from the tree of life and you become immortal like us. Exclusionary system. So, the cherub with his flaming sword is hereby commanded to leave his guard at the tree of life, and when he does, the whole creation will be consumed and appear infinite and holy, whereas now it appears finite and corrupt. This will come to pass by an improvement of sensual enjoyment. Go for aphrodisiacs and hallucinogenics. Yes, and each other. But first, the notion that man has a body distinct from his soul is to be expunged. This I shall do by printing in the infernal method, by corrosives. It was Blake's doing engravings in copper and etching the stuff, which in hell are salutary and medicinal, melting apparent surfaces away and displaying the infinite which was hid. If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear as it is, infinite. For man has closed himself up till he sees all things through narrow chinks of his cavern. So I'd like to tell you a story, part of an ancient story, an ancient myth, actually the oldest written myth of Western culture. Story of Gilgamesh and Enkidu and the goddess Ishtar, which might also be called the story of the hero, the wild man, and the goddess. Or better, the goddess, the wild man, and the hero, just for the sake of balance. And in this oldest myth of Western civilization, I think more basic to the Western psyche than the Greek or the Egyptian myths, we find already all the themes in a prophetic way that we deal with now. The overbearing male, patriarchal, heroic warrior ego trip, the distrust of the goddess, and the projection upon the goddess of qualities of human deceitfulness and treachery, the regret of what was lost in giving up the old goddess cultures and going to a male-dominated culture, and what was lost by leaving the wilderness and going into cities. And the price that was paid for that, the price that was paid for hubris, and the price that was paid for separation from our instinctual nature. And Gilgamesh was king of Uruk. Uruk was the city from which Abraham went out. Abraham was a pastoralist, a herder, a wandering nomadic herder. He took his herds of sheep and his tribe of people and founded another religion. Uruk was a city of farmers. Gilgamesh was a mighty king, a great warrior. He had built the city of Uruk with massive walls of stone. He had slain many enemies. He was said to be 2/3 God and 1/3 man. He was a mighty and powerful man and king. And he became overbearing and arrogant in his behavior towards his own people. He lorded it over the people. He bullied the young men, and he demanded that the young brides were given to him for the first night of their marriage. And he oppressed the people to the point where the people went and complained to the high gods and said, "You have to do something about this Gilgamesh king of ours. He lords it over us, he oppresses us, and he pushes it around till our lives are miserable. He is a tyrant." And the gods sitting in council agreed that something had to be done, that a counterpart player had to be created. So they went to the old ancient goddess Aruru, the creator goddess, who created both them and men, and said to her, please create somebody to balance out this raving Gilgamesh tyrant. Somebody who will be his equal in strength and courage, who will be like him, like his very self, like a second self, it says. Thereby pointing, this is an aside, to the fact that right here in this earlier story we're dealing with a coded story that talks about the internal psyche. This second self is the second self within every one of us. Gilgamesh is the human self who becomes arrogant through power. Gilgamesh had a dream in which he saw a star fall from heaven. And the people came to pick up the star. And it was heavy, and Gilgamesh tried to pick it up, and it was so heavy he could not lift it. And he went to his mother Ninsun, who was herself a seeress, semi-divine seeress, priestess, who said, "This dream symbolizes the one who is going to be born, who will be your counterpart, your brother, your equal, like unto you, like your very self." Gilgamesh had said in the dream, he bent down to pick up the star and he felt attracted to it like to a woman. And he had another dream in which a sword of unusual design was found in the town square. And nobody could figure out what it meant, and Gilgamesh picked it up and put it on his belt. And he went to his mother and asked her, "What does this mean?" And she said, "This too is the one who is going to be born, who is like yourself, your counterpart. And he will be like your right arm. He will help you fight your battles and be your equal, strong like you." In the woods, a hunter saw a creature, a man, with the animals, running with the animals, drinking at the stream with the animals. This man was covered with hair all over his body and had long hair like a woman. And he ran with the animals and he drank waiting for. And Gilgamesh went to the priestesses of the temple of Ishtar and asked the priestesses of the temple of Ishtar to send one of their women priestesses, later on falsely called sacred prostitutes. They were not prostitutes. They did not sell sex for money. They offered love as an act of devotion to the goddess. Gilgamesh sent the priestess with the hunter and another companion out into the wilderness to search for this man called Enkidu.